18 years after leaving his family behind to chase success, Ethan returns home, only to see Marie, the woman he abandoned, and a daughter, Lily, who barely knows him. Filled with regret, Ethan faces the uphill battle of winning back their trust and rebuilding the bonds he once shattered. Through small steps, family traditions, and moments of raw vulnerability, Ethan fights for a second chance. But will Marie and Lily be able to forgive him? And can he prove he's truly changed? If you're drawn to stories of redemption and family, hit subscribe, like this video, and let us know in the comments if you think Ethan deserves a second chance. Now let's begin this heartfelt journey. Ethan stepped off the plane, his footsteps slow and hesitant as he moved through the small regional airport. The years he'd spent away seemed to weigh on every step, anchoring him with a sense of both dread and purpose. In New York, he'd crafted a life of luxury. A penthouse, exclusive events, influential friends. Yet, as he took in the familiar sights and sounds of his hometown, that life felt empty. His eyes drifted around the terminal, landing on familiar faces. Strangers now, yet tinged with faint familiarity. This town had once held his entire world. The modest beginnings, the community picnics, and late-night talks by the lake with Marie. The thought of her name alone stirred something painful within him. Ethan stopped near the arrivals area, allowing himself a moment to breathe, when he saw her, Marie, as unmistakable as the day he'd left. Her auburn hair was streaked with silver now, her face carrying an expression that was both weary and resolute. She was looking at someone, a young woman with strikingly familiar features. His heart caught as he realized it was a face he saw every day in the mirror. The young woman, perhaps 18, was the spitting image of him, Lily. For a moment Ethan felt frozen, as if time itself had halted, allowing him to stand and witness the life he had missed. Numbness spread through his limbs, followed quickly by a storm of emotions he could barely process. Regret, guilt, longing, all rising in him like a wave. But before he could muster the courage to call out, to approach, Marie's gaze moved through the crowd, her hand reaching for her daughter's arm as they started to disappear into the crowd. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he pushed through a tangle of passengers, his mind racing. "Marie!" he called out, but his voice was swallowed by the din of the busy terminal. He tried again, louder this time, but she was too far to hear. Within seconds they had vanished, leaving him standing alone, a stranger in the life he'd abandoned. A deep ache settled in his chest, the loss sharper now than it had been all these years. He had been the one to walk away, believing the promise of success and fortune was worth the cost. But now, seeing the life he'd left behind, it all seemed futile. A hollow prize, earned at too high a price. Ethan sat in a small corner booth of the airport cafe, his hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee. He barely tasted it, his mind too consumed with the image of Marie and Lily. Memories that he'd kept buried now surged to the surface, vivid and painful. He remembered the last day he'd seen Marie, her tear-filled eyes pleading with him to stay, her voice breaking as she begged him to reconsider his plans to leave for New York. They had been so young then, both clinging to dreams they'd sketched out together in late-night conversations. She had wanted stability, a home, a family to raise together, and he had wanted success, driven by the fear of failure, desperate to prove himself. His ambitions had led him to make promises he couldn't keep, and in his pursuit of wealth, he'd walked away. Guilt settled like a stone in his chest. He had never imagined Marie would be left to face it all alone. And Lily, she was his daughter, yet he'd missed every milestone, every birthday, every moment that mattered. She had grown up without him, and the thought filled him with an anguish he could hardly bear. "I need to find them," he muttered under his breath, feeling an urgency that had been absent for too long. He flagged down a waitress and asked for the nearest public phone, his mind already racing through his options. With trembling fingers, he dialed the number for a private investigator he knew back in New York. When the line connected, he tried to steady his voice, explaining his situation in a hushed tone, the vulnerability of his words surprising even him. Days later, Ethan found himself pacing the halls of a small hotel, waiting for a call from the investigator. He had combed through places that once meant something to him and Marie, walking through the park they'd loved, and even visiting the old house where they'd dreamed of raising a family. Every step brought memories, fragments of a life he'd traded away for fleeting success. When the phone finally rang, he answered on the first ring. The investigator's voice was calm, professional, as he relayed the information he'd gathered. Marie, it turned out, had endured more than he could have imagined. Without him, she'd managed to raise their daughter, working multiple jobs, weathering the stigma and struggle of being a single mother in a small town. "Your daughter's name is Lily," the investigator said, his voice devoid of judgment but heavy with implication. "She's recently graduated high school. I believe she's looking into college, but from what I understand, it's been difficult due to some medical issues." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Medical issues. Ethan's breath caught as he absorbed the information. His absence had left more than just an emotional wound. Marie and Lily had carried burdens he hadn't even considered. "Thank you," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper as he ended the call. He sat there in silence, grappling with the consequences of his choices. This was his doing. His absence had left scars that money could never heal. But now, he realized, he had a chance to make amends, to find a way back into their lives. He knew it would be a long, painful journey, but he was ready. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of clarity, a direction that wasn't driven by ambition, but by something deeper. He pulled out his wallet, taking out a photograph he'd kept tucked away for years. It was a picture of him and Marie, taken on a sunny afternoon before he'd left. They were laughing, their faces close together, carefree in a way he could barely recognize anymore. "I'm coming back," he whispered, looking down at the photo, a promise this time that he was determined to keep. The investigator's report had left Ethan feeling hollow, yet determined. Marie's struggles were more severe than he'd imagined. She'd fought every day to provide for their daughter without him. The idea of her working late shifts, sacrificing her own dreams to support their child, it weighed on him with a guilt that words couldn't capture. He revisited the park where they'd once talked about their future. He could almost hear her laughter on the breeze, the way she'd believed in their dreams without reservation. Now he felt he had shattered that hope. In his hand, he held a single rose, a small token of respect, and a reminder of the love they'd once shared. He laid it on a bench, a silent apology for every unkept promise, every birthday and milestone he'd missed. But he couldn't wallow in regret. His focus now was on finding them, on earning a place in their lives once again. He knew Marie might never forgive him entirely, and Lily might never see him as her father, but he was determined to try, no matter how long it took. Ethan stood outside a modest house on the outskirts of town, the address the investigator had given him. His heart pounded as he rehearsed what he would say. Apologies felt inadequate, too small a word for the years he'd stolen from them. His hand hovered over the doorbell, and he took a deep breath, steadying himself. He was ready to face Marie and Lily, prepared to accept whatever anger or resentment they had. He was here to prove, not with words but with his actions, that he was ready to be a part of their lives, whatever it took. And with that, he pressed the doorbell, bracing himself for the moment he'd been both dreading and longing for. The door opened, and there stood Marie, her face a mixture of surprise and guarded emotion. And in that moment, he knew his journey was only beginning. Ethan's heart pounded as the door creaked open, revealing Marie on the other side. She looked at him, stunned, with a mixture of anger and disbelief written on her face. For a moment they both stood motionless, as if neither could believe this meeting was actually happening. "Ethan," she finally whispered, her voice laced with a tremble. She held the door tightly as if bracing herself. "Marie," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I needed to see you. To explain." The words felt too small, yet they were all he could manage. Just as he was about to continue, a voice from the hallway broke the silence. "Mom? Who's at the door?" Lily stepped into view, her resemblance to Ethan startlingly clear. She stopped, her expression shifting from confusion to wariness. She didn't recognize him, of course, but her instincts seemed to sense something significant. "This is—" Marie hesitated, her voice catching. "This is your father." Lily's eyes widened as she looked back and forth between them. "You left us. I don't need a father now." Ethan's chest tightened, but he stayed calm. Lily, I know I can't change the past. I'm here now, though, hoping we can start again. Without another word, Lily turned away, her face a mask of resentment as she stormed back into the house. Ethan looked back at Marie, who gave a long, weary sigh. Ethan, you can't just come back and expect everything to be okay. Her voice was controlled, but the pain was unmistakable. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. I know. I don't expect forgiveness, Marie. I just want the chance to make things right. If I still can. Marie gave a faint nod, her expression unreadable, but she stepped aside, allowing him to enter the house he'd once dreamed of building with her. Sitting in Marie's modest living room, Ethan looked around, noting the small, homey touches she'd placed in every corner. The cozy blankets, family photos, even a framed picture of Lily's graduation. It struck him that this was the life he'd missed, the family he'd left behind. He took a deep breath, trying to find the right words as Marie sat across from him, guarded but listening. Marie, I don't even know where to begin, he started, voice thick with emotion. I made so many mistakes, chasing success while ignoring what really mattered. I see that now. I'm here, hoping there's a way to make up for lost time. Marie held his gaze, unblinking. Ethan, I raised our daughter alone. I worked jobs you can't imagine, trying to give her what you were supposed to. She doesn't know you, and she has every right to resent you. Ethan's chest tightened, but he nodded. I understand, and I don't blame her. But maybe there's a way I can be there for both of you now, if you'll let me. Marie studied him, a mixture of hope and hurt flickering in her eyes. That's up to Lily, but if you want any chance of this working, you'll need to show her, not just say the right words. The next day, Ethan waited for Lily in the kitchen, hoping to start a conversation over breakfast. He wanted to get to know her, to understand her likes and dreams. But when she entered the room and saw him, her expression hardened. Good morning, Lily, he greeted, his tone gentle but uncertain. She ignored him, grabbing a bowl from the cabinet and pouring herself a silent breakfast. She ate quickly, her posture tense, and avoided his eyes. Lily, he tried again, I'd like to get to know you if you'll let me. She paused, spoon halfway to her mouth, before setting it down with a sigh. You think you can just show up and pretend we're a family? That I'll forget you left us? You can't just undo all those years with a few nice words. Ethan felt her words like a punch, but he held steady, keeping his voice calm. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want to be here for you now, if that's possible. She shook her head, a look of resentment in her eyes. Well, maybe I don't want you here. With that, she picked up her bowl, turned her back on him, and left the room. Ethan was left alone, feeling the weight of his actions as a tangible ache in his chest. But he was undeterred. He knew it would take time, and he was willing to wait. Later that afternoon, Marie found Ethan sitting on the front steps, his shoulders hunched in quiet reflection. She joined him, offering a cup of tea, and they sat in silence for a while before she finally spoke. Raising Lily alone wasn't easy, Ethan, she began, her voice low and steady. I went through days I thought I couldn't manage, days I didn't know if we'd make it. Ethan looked at her, his face a mask of regret. I had no idea it was that hard for you, Marie. I thought you'd be better off without me. She gave a bitter laugh. Better off? You left us, Ethan. I spent years working 2 jobs, missing out on things I wanted to do because Lily needed me. I had no one to lean on, no one to share the burden with. The pain in her words struck him deeply. He reached out, placing a hand over hers. I wish I could go back and undo all that. I know I don't deserve it, but is there a way to move forward? Marie sighed, pulling her hand back. That's not for me to decide. You'll have to earn that from both of us. Ethan found himself walking through the old park that afternoon, haunted by memories of his last day with Marie. They'd argued here, standing by the lake, her voice raw with emotion as she begged him to stay, to choose her over his dreams in New York. But he hadn't listened. He'd been blinded by ambition, by the promise of a life he thought he wanted, and he'd left, believing he was doing the right thing, only to realize too late that he'd left behind the only thing that truly mattered. Now, years later, he stood in that same spot, a man burdened by the weight of his mistakes. The park was quiet, the gentle rustle of leaves the only sound around him. As he stood there, a wave of determination settled over him. He couldn't change the past, but he could change the future. He would find a way to earn Marie's and Lily's trust again, even if it took the rest of his life. With that, he turned back toward the house, ready to face the slow, difficult path ahead. He knew it would take patience, perseverance, and more apologies than he could count, but he was willing to do it. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope. The days that followed were tense. Ethan tried to create small moments with Lily, offering to help around the house, joining them at meals, and asking about her school. But each attempt was met with quiet resistance. Lily remained distant, her responses clipped, her gaze avoiding his. One evening, Ethan sat reading in the living room when he heard a loud crash from Lily's room. He rushed down the hall, his heart pounding. Marie was already at the door, her face pale with worry as she opened it to find Lily doubled over, her face contorted in pain. "Lily!" Ethan knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he placed them on her shoulders. It's okay," she whispered, but her voice was faint, her breaths coming in shallow gasps. "We need to get her to the hospital," Marie said urgently, helping her daughter stand. Without hesitation, Ethan scooped Lily into his arms and carried her to the car, Marie rushing by his side. During the drive, Ethan's mind whirled with guilt and fear. This was his daughter, and he had missed every moment, every sign of her struggles. At the hospital, they waited together, Marie gripping Ethan's hand despite herself, as they watched the doctors disappear with Lily down a long corridor. In that moment, Ethan felt a raw helplessness that tore at him, a reminder of all he hadn't been there for. Hours later, the doctor emerged, reassuring them that Lily was stable but needed careful monitoring and a regular treatment plan. They sat in the waiting room, relief washing over them, though Ethan felt the guilt still deeply rooted. As they walked back to the parking lot, a familiar voice called out. Ethan turned to see Pastor Tom, a friend of Marie's, a man with warm eyes and a kind smile. He greeted Marie, then turned to Ethan, extending a hand. "Ethan, I've heard about your return," he said with gentle warmth. "I know it must be a challenging time for everyone." Ethan gave a hesitant nod. "It is. I'm trying to fix things, to be here for them." Pastor Tom nodded, watching him closely. "That's a good start, Ethan. Sometimes, what we can't change alone, faith and community can help us with." Ethan glanced at Marie, then back at the pastor. He had never been one for faith, but now, feeling the weight of his failures, he considered it. "I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I want to be there for them, in any way I can." Pastor Tom placed a hand on his shoulder. "Being here, facing the difficult past, is already a brave first step. The rest will come in time." Ethan felt a flicker of hope, though he knew the journey ahead would be long and demanding. The days after Lily's hospital visit marked a shift. Ethan spent more time with her, helping her with small things, though she still held him at arm's length. She allowed him to sit with her while she worked on homework, even if they barely spoke. One afternoon, Ethan joined her on the porch, where she sat sketching, her fingers gliding expertly across the page. Curious, he leaned closer. "What are you drawing?" he asked, his voice gentle. Lily glanced at him, a flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. But after a long pause, she turned the sketch toward him. It was a portrait, a remarkably detailed drawing of Marie. "She's beautiful," Ethan said, his voice soft. Lily gave a small nod, her expression unreadable. She's everything." The words stung, a reminder of the role Marie had filled alone. But he kept his voice steady. "She is, and so are you, Lily. I'm so proud of the person you've become." Lily looked away, a faint blush on her cheeks, but she didn't move from his side. In that small moment, Ethan saw the beginning of something he could barely name. A tentative opening, a fragile start. One evening after Lily had gone to bed, Ethan and Marie sat together at the kitchen table, a comfortable silence settling between them. Marie sipped her tea, watching him thoughtfully. "Lily's been through more than you know," she said finally, her voice soft but firm. "She's strong, but she's had to be." Ethan nodded, guilt settling heavy in his chest. "I missed everything, Marie. I don't know if I can ever make up for it." Marie looked at him, her eyes reflecting both pain and compassion. It wasn't just Lily who missed out, Ethan. I lost a partner. I had to carry everything alone. Finances, worry, and the dreams we once shared. They all fell apart. Ethan's hand tightened around his mug. I'm sorry, Marie. I know sorry isn't enough, but if there's anything I can do to ease the burden now, Marie sighed, looking down at her hands. You're here now, and that's a start. But this is going to take time, Ethan. Words alone won't erase the past. He nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. I know, and I'll be here as long as it takes. A few days later, Ethan tried to make things easier around the house by taking on chores, cooking meals, and making sure Lily had what she needed. He even picked up her medications, a task Marie had handled alone for years. But his presence, while well-meaning, wasn't always welcome. One evening, Lily returned from school to find Ethan preparing dinner. He looked up, giving her a hopeful smile. I made spaghetti. Thought it might be a nice way for us to start fresh. Lily frowned, her gaze hardening as she set down her backpack. I don't need you to start fresh. Mom and I did fine without you. You think cooking a few dinners will fix things? Ethan felt the words like a blow but managed a steady tone. I know it won't fix everything, Lily. I just wanted to do something to help. Lily scoffed, shaking her head. Help? You want to help now? Where were you all those years we needed you? Mom was always there. Not you. She turned and left the room, her footsteps echoing down the hall. Ethan stood frozen. The quiet dinner table a reminder of his loneliness, of the wall he still had to break through. In the days that followed, Ethan made every effort to be present for Lily and Marie. He helped with morning routines, took over chores, and made it a point to sit with Lily during her study sessions, hoping his consistency would soften her guarded demeanor. But one morning, as he was setting up the kitchen for breakfast, his phone rang. It was his assistant from New York, her voice tense as she detailed a crisis in the company that demanded his immediate attention. Sir, we really need you here, she said, the urgency evident. Investors are growing impatient, and this could impact everything you've worked for. Ethan closed his eyes, torn. He knew that heading back to New York, even briefly, would send a clear message to Lily, that he still prioritized his career over her and Marie. I understand, but I'm not available to leave right now, he replied, surprising even himself with the firmness in his tone. I'll handle what I can remotely. Tell them I'm committed to resolving this, but my family needs me here. As he hung up, he took a deep breath, feeling both satisfaction and uncertainty. Sacrificing his career, even for a moment, was foreign to him. Yet as he glanced toward the hallway where Lily's laughter echoed faintly, he knew he had made the right choice. That evening, Ethan tried to initiate a conversation with Lily. He told her a bit about his career, explaining his responsibilities, and how he'd chosen to prioritize being with her instead. He hoped it would reassure her, show her he was serious about being part of her life. But she barely reacted, her expression unreadable as she watched him speak. Finally, she shook her head. So let me get this straight, she said, her tone sharp. You expect me to be grateful just because you chose us over work this one time? You think that makes up for all those years? Ethan felt a pang of guilt, but maintained his calm. No, Lily, I know it doesn't make up for anything. I just want you to know I'm willing to change. She let out a short laugh, devoid of humor. Well, I'm not ready to believe it. You still seem like the guy who thinks he can fix everything with a couple of grand gestures. But we don't need you to swoop in and play hero now. Lily turned and walked out, her shoulders tense, leaving Ethan alone with the hollow ache in his chest. He knew trust wasn't something he could buy with words or actions alone, and he had to let her anger run its course. But her rejection still stung, a reminder of just how far he had to go. Later that night, Ethan found himself in the living room, staring out the window as the weight of Lily's words sank in. He wondered if he was wasting his time, if he was destined to remain an outsider in his own family. Marie walked in, observing his somber expression. She moved closer, resting a comforting hand on his shoulder. She's angry, Ethan, Marie said softly. You can't rush this. She needs time to process everything. Ethan nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. It feels like no matter what I do, she won't let me in. Marie offered a gentle smile, her eyes filled with empathy. If you're serious about this, Then don't give up. Show her you're here to stay, even on the days she doesn't want you to be. Her words gave him a glimmer of hope, a reminder that this journey was more marathon than sprint. Ethan promised himself he'd stay, no matter how many times Lily pushed him away. For the first time he felt a steady resolve settle in his heart, grounded not in guilt, but in love. In the days that followed, Ethan took Marie's advice to heart. He dedicated his time not only to Lily, but also to getting to know the small town and the people who had supported Marie and Lily over the years. One Saturday he volunteered at a local community event, where he worked alongside Pastor Tom and other community members, setting up tables and arranging supplies. He found himself enjoying the work, surprised by the sense of fulfillment that came from simple, honest contributions. During a break, Pastor Tom joined him, offering a friendly smile. "It's good to see you out here, Ethan. The people here have always been there for Marie and Lily. It's part of what kept them strong." Ethan nodded, feeling both gratitude and humility. "I should have been here too. I can't change that, but I want to be part of their world now." Pastor Tom patted his shoulder, a look of approval in his eyes. "You're here now, Ethan, and that counts for something. Keep showing up. Keep being there for them." Ethan absorbed the advice, realizing that small, consistent actions would build the foundation he needed. As the day continued, he worked harder, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose, hoping each small step would bring him closer to being the man Lily and Marie could count on. That evening, Ethan returned home, feeling exhausted but satisfied from the day's work. As he sat at the kitchen table, Lily wandered in, her expression softer than usual. She grabbed a glass of water, hesitating before speaking. "Mom said you helped out at the community event today," she murmured, not quite meeting his eyes. She said you did a good job." Ethan felt a flicker of hope, nodding slowly. "I wanted to contribute. The people there, they were incredible. It helped me understand what kept you both going." Lily seemed to consider his words before offering a faint smile. "Mom's been helping out there for years. Those people are like family to us." Ethan felt a pang of gratitude for the community that had filled his absence. "I'm thankful they were there for you, and I'd like to be part of that too." Lily didn't respond but lingered, as if she had more to say. After a moment she looked up, her gaze meeting his. "You're trying. I can see that." The words were tentative, as if spoken more to herself than to him, but they lifted Ethan's spirits. He knew it was a small step, but it felt monumental, a sliver of acceptance from the daughter he so desperately wanted to connect with. "Thank you, Lily," he replied, his voice full of gratitude. "I'll keep trying." As she left the room, Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time since his return, he believed he might have a chance to rebuild the life he'd lost. This wasn't a miracle cure, and there would be more obstacles ahead. But in that small, quiet moment, he felt that he had made his first true connection with Lily. As the days passed, Ethan continued to juggle calls from New York with his new life in the small town. He handled pressing business issues from a distance, often stepping out to take calls between errands, meetings with Pastor Tom, and helping around the community. However, one afternoon, a particularly urgent call came through from his assistant. "Sir, the investors are requesting an in-person meeting," she said, her voice tense. "They're not happy with how things are running without you here. They want to see you back in New York." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the familiar pull of responsibility. For a moment he considered going. This meeting could secure the company's future, potentially undoing everything he had built here. But then he looked around the small kitchen where he'd spent countless moments trying to connect with his daughter. He thought of the small breakthrough he'd made with Lily, the tentative trust he was building with Marie, and he knew he couldn't leave. "Not now. Tell them I'm not available for travel at the moment," he replied firmly. "I'll handle what I can remotely, but my priority is here." After ending the call, he felt both relief and anxiety. He was turning down everything he'd once believed was important for the chance to reconnect with his family. This time, he was certain he'd made the right choice. Ethan decided to spend the following day volunteering at the community center, taking on various tasks alongside Marie. From organizing donations to cleaning up the grounds, he immersed himself in the work, feeling a renewed sense of purpose with each completed task. Marie watched him throughout the day, noticing his effort. He was different now. No longer the ambitious young man she remembered, but someone who seemed humbled, willing to put in the work without expecting immediate rewards. During a break, Marie sat down next to him on a worn-out bench. "You're doing well here," she said, surprising him. Her voice held a note of cautious approval. Ethan offered a grateful smile. "Thank you, Marie. I don't expect to be forgiven right away, but being here, it feels right." Marie looked away, nodding thoughtfully. Lily noticed too. "She may not say it, but she sees you're trying." The words gave Ethan a spark of hope. He knew his road to redemption was far from over, but with Marie's words of encouragement, he felt a renewed resolve to keep going. That evening, Ethan found himself alone on the porch, the stars shining brightly against the dark sky. As he sipped his coffee, the screen door creaked open, and Lily stepped out, joining him silently. She gazed out at the yard, her face calm but unreadable. "Mom says you're helping out at the community center," she murmured. Ethan looked at her, choosing his words carefully. "Yes, I am. The people there have been so supportive of you and your mom, and I want to give back in whatever way I can." Lily shrugged, her gaze still fixed on the night sky. "They don't expect anything in return. That's what makes them different." "I know," he replied softly, "but I want to be part of that too. I want to be someone you and your mom can rely on." Lily didn't respond immediately, and the silence stretched between them. Finally, she took a deep breath, glancing his way with a hint of vulnerability. "You say that, but it's hard for me to believe. I don't know if you'll just disappear again when things get tough." Ethan's heart ached, but he nodded, understanding. "You have every right to feel that way, Lily. I know I've given you no reason to trust me. But I promise I'm here for good." Lily gave him a long, searching look before she turned to go back inside. She didn't say another word, but the fact that she'd opened up even a little felt like a step forward. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Ethan and Marie shared a quiet moment on the back porch, the air heavy with unspoken words. They'd come to rely on these quiet conversations, small opportunities to address the past in bits and pieces. Taking a deep breath, Ethan looked at Marie, his expression somber. "There's something I need to tell you, something I never told you before." Marie glanced at him, her eyes questioning but calm. "Go on." "When I left all those years ago, it wasn't just for ambition," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "I was running from something, a previous relationship. I had a son I never knew, and when I found out, I didn't know how to handle it. I was afraid." Marie's expression softened as she listened, a mixture of surprise and sadness. "You never told me." "I should have," Ethan admitted. "I thought I could just leave it all behind, but the guilt, it never left me. I made a terrible mistake then, just as I made a terrible mistake leaving you and Lily." Marie sighed, her face reflecting a mix of empathy and disappointment. "We all have regrets, Ethan, but if you want to be part of this family, you have to confront them. You have to show us that you're here for the long haul." Ethan nodded, a sense of relief and purpose filling him. "I'm ready, Marie. Whatever it takes, I'm not running anymore." The following weekend, Ethan returned from the community center to find Lily waiting for him in the living room. She looked nervous, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. Can I ask you for a favor?" she asked, her voice tentative. Ethan felt a flicker of hope as he nodded, keeping his tone calm. "Of course, Lily. Anything you need." She hesitated before continuing. "There's a fundraiser event at school, and I signed up to help set up. It's a big project, and I could use an extra set of hands." Ethan's face softened. "I'd be honored to help." Lily offered him a small, hesitant smile. "Thanks. It's nothing major, just some decorations and things." As she turned to leave, she paused, glancing back. "I didn't expect you to stay. When you didn't go back to New York, I was surprised." Ethan took a deep breath, choosing his words with care. "I'm here because you and your mom matter more to me than anything else now. I'm not going back to my old life, Lily. This is where I want to be." Lily gave a quick nod, her expression thoughtful, and left him standing there with a sense of accomplishment. This was the first time she'd reached out to him, and it felt monumental. She was still guarded, but he sensed the beginnings of trust, a fragile thread he was determined not to break. The day of the school fundraiser arrived with a flurry of activity. Ethan arrived early, helping Lily with decorations, setting up tables and hauling supplies into the gym. It was a simple task, but to him each small gesture felt monumental. Lily seemed more relaxed than usual, directing him with a sense of authority that made him smile. As they worked side by side, a few of Lily's friends stopped by to help. They glanced curiously at Ethan, whispering to Lily, who seemed slightly embarrassed, but also a little proud to have her father there. At one point, a friend asked Lily about Ethan, referring to him as her dad. She hesitated, glancing at Ethan before giving a small nod. "Yeah, that's my dad," she said quietly, as if testing out the words. Ethan's heart swelled with pride, though he remained silent, respecting her space. For the first time he felt like he was part of her life. Not as a stranger trying to make up for lost time, but as her father. That evening, after the fundraiser had concluded and the last decorations had been packed away, Ethan and Lily found themselves walking home under a sky strewn with stars. The silence between them felt comfortable, almost companionable. As they neared home, Lily broke the silence. "I didn't think you'd stay through the whole event," she admitted, her voice soft. Ethan chuckled lightly. "Why wouldn't I? I enjoyed every moment. Seeing you take charge, working with your friends. It reminded me of what I'd been missing all these years." She looked at him, her gaze thoughtful. "Sometimes I wonder why you left in the first place. Wasn't family important back then?" Ethan paused, his expression clouded. "Family was always important, Lily. I just didn't realize it until it was too late. I thought I was doing the right thing, trying to build a life, but I see now how wrong I was." Lily's silence felt contemplative rather than angry, and she gave him a nod. "I'm not saying I forgive you yet, but it's nice to see you trying." Her words brought a mixture of relief and determination, a sign that the walls between them were beginning to crack. He knew there was still a long way to go, but moments like this made him believe that one day she might truly welcome him into her life. One quiet afternoon, Marie and Ethan took a walk together through the town, stopping at the small, bustling market square. The easy pace of the town, the familiar faces waving at Marie, reminded Ethan of the stability he'd left behind years ago. "I had it all wrong, didn't I?" he murmured, glancing over at her. "I thought success would fix everything. But being here, seeing the life you built, this is the life I should have been here to share with you." Marie offered him a gentle smile, though her eyes held traces of the pain she'd carried alone. "We all make mistakes, Ethan. We try to do the best we can, and sometimes we miss what truly matters." They stopped by a bakery where Marie bought a loaf of fresh bread. As they walked back, she gave him a sidelong glance. "You've changed. I can see it. But change takes time, and building trust does too. Lily is starting to see that, even if she doesn't show it." Her words encouraged him, and he felt the weight of her forgiveness slowly lifting his own guilt. "I know I can't erase the past, but I'm here to build a better future. With you and Lily, if you'll let me." Marie nodded, her expression softening. "Then let's take it one day at a time, Ethan. We'll see where that takes us." As the weeks went by, Ethan became a familiar face at the community center. He joined in on projects with ease, attending town meetings, volunteering wherever he could, and forming connections with people who had once only known him by name. One afternoon, Pastor Tom approached him with a smile. "You've come a long way, Ethan. People here notice what you're doing, and they appreciate it." Ethan felt a wave of humility wash over him. "I've been given so much kindness here, especially with Marie and Lily. I'm only giving back what I can." Pastor Tom gave him a knowing look. "It's more than that, though. You've shown up consistently, even on the days it was hardest. That's what real commitment looks like." The pastor's words struck a chord within him, reinforcing his resolve. He realized that his journey wasn't just about making amends. It was about becoming the person Marie and Lily needed him to be, a reliable, present, and humble part of their lives. One evening, just as Ethan was settling down after a long day, he heard a commotion in Lily's room. Rushing down the hall, he found Marie holding a trembling Lily, her face etched with worry. "Lily?" Ethan's voice was thick with fear as he knelt beside her. She was clutching her stomach, her face pale. "It's happening again," she whispered, her voice weak. I need to go to the hospital." Ethan's heart pounded as he scooped her up, rushing her to the car with Marie following close behind. During the drive to the hospital, he tried to soothe Lily, his voice soft, assuring her that everything would be all right. Once at the hospital, they waited together, holding their breaths as the doctors worked. Hours passed in tense silence until the doctor emerged, reassuring them that Lily was stable but needed regular treatment and rest. As they sat beside Lily's bed, Ethan reached for Marie's hand, holding it tightly. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and exhaustion. Lily lay quietly, her breathing steady, and Ethan's gaze softened as he watched his daughter. In that moment, he made a silent promise to be there for her, no matter what. He knew now that his presence mattered more than anything he could achieve in the business world, and he was ready to give everything to ensure her well-being. When Lily opened her eyes, she glanced over at Ethan and Marie, a faint smile on her lips. "Thank you for staying," she murmured, looking at her father with a glimmer of trust. Ethan smiled back, his heart filled with hope. "I'll always be here, Lily. I promise." After Lily's health scare, Ethan devoted himself to making life at home as comfortable and steady as possible. He adjusted his routine to support Lily's medical needs, ensuring her treatments were on schedule, her meals were prepared, and that he was present for anything she might need. One morning, as they sat together at the breakfast table, Lily glanced up, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You really are trying, aren't you?" she murmured, almost to herself. Ethan looked at her, his expression warm but sincere. I know I'll never be able to change the past, but I want you to know that my commitment to you and your mom is real. I'm here, for as long as you'll have me." Lily offered a small, hesitant smile, the softening in her eyes giving him hope. "Maybe we'll get there, one day." It was a simple statement, but it felt monumental. For Ethan, it was proof that his efforts were not in vain, and he was willing to wait as long as it took to build something real with his daughter. Ethan made it a habit to be present during the small moments that defined their daily lives. He joined Marie and Lily for quiet family dinners, contributed to household chores, and even started attending Sunday services with them. Though faith had once seemed foreign to him, being there allowed him to understand the strength Marie had drawn from it over the years. One Sunday, as they left the church, Pastor Tom caught up to Ethan. "I see you're becoming a part of our community in more ways than one," the pastor said with a warm smile. Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude. "Being here, it's helping me see things in a new light. I feel grounded, connected." Pastor Tom placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "That's what family and community do for us, and I can see that Marie and Lily are starting to feel it too. Keep at it." As they walked home together, Marie and Ethan shared a quiet smile, a moment of unspoken understanding passing between them. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt he belonged, not just to the community, but to his own family. One evening, after a particularly quiet family dinner, Lily lingered in the kitchen, helping Ethan with the dishes. They worked in silence, the clinking of plates and running water filling the space between them. Out of the blue, Lily spoke, her voice soft but serious. "You know, I used to think that I didn't need a father. I told myself that Mom was enough, that we were fine without you." Ethan paused, looking over at her. "I understand, Lily. I gave you every reason to feel that way." She shrugged, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe, but seeing you here actually trying, it's made me wonder. I think there was always a part of me that wished you would come back." Her words, though tentative, struck Ethan deeply. He swallowed, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here now, Lily, and I'm not going anywhere. I want to be here for you, to make up for the time we've lost." Lily gave a slight nod, and while she didn't say anything more, the fact that she'd opened up to him was a step Ethan had longed for. It was another fragile thread of trust, and he promised himself he would cherish it. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Marie and Ethan found themselves alone in the living room, the quiet night settling around them. Marie glanced over at him, her gaze soft yet reflective. "You know," she began, her voice low, "I've been watching you. I see the way you're with Lily, the way you've been helping out around here. It's different than before." Ethan met her gaze, feeling both relief and a tinge of hope. I am different, Marie. I know I've made mistakes, and I can't undo them. But being here with you both, it's all I want now. I never realized how much I missed out on until I came back. Marie smiled, a hint of forgiveness in her expression. It's been hard for Lily, for both of us, but she's starting to see you're serious. And so am I. They sat in silence for a while, comfortable and familiar, and Ethan felt a new layer of connection form between them. He knew the journey was far from over, but for the first time he felt they were truly walking it together. One sunny Saturday, Marie suggested they take a day trip to the lake, a spot they had once frequented as young adults. Ethan was thrilled, eager for the chance to create new memories with both Marie and Lily. As they set up a small picnic by the water, the air was filled with laughter and the gentle breeze. Lily waded into the lake, challenging Ethan to join her. Though he hesitated at first, he couldn't resist her playful grin, and soon found himself splashing in the shallow water, laughing like he hadn't in years. Marie watched from the shore, a smile gracing her face as she observed them. For a moment, it was as though the years of pain and distance had faded, replaced by a warm sense of belonging. After they'd dried off and were gathered around the picnic blanket, Lily glanced at her parents. "This is nice," she said quietly, as if testing the waters of this new, fragile peace. Ethan smiled, reaching out to give her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "It is, and it's all I've ever wanted, to be here with you both, just like this." They shared a comfortable silence, basking in the warmth of the day and the tentative bonds they'd worked so hard to build. Ethan knew there would still be challenges ahead, but in that moment, he felt like they had all the time in the world to face them. Together, Ethan's efforts hadn't gone unnoticed by the community. One Sunday after service, Pastor Tom invited him to join a local charity committee, a project aimed at supporting single-parent households, a cause that had newfound meaning to Ethan. During the first meeting, Ethan shared some of his experiences with the group, describing the guilt he carried for leaving his own family and his determination to rebuild his life around them. The other members listened intently, and he could sense their genuine support. Afterward, Pastor Tom pulled him aside, smiling warmly. "This is the kind of commitment that matters, Ethan. It's not just about showing up, but giving back to others." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. Being part of the committee wasn't just a chance to make amends, it was a way to help others facing challenges similar to the ones Marie had once navigated alone. He left the meeting with a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in years, knowing he was growing into the man his family deserved. Later that week, Ethan and Marie found themselves in a quiet moment at home. They sat together in the living room, watching as Lily worked on a school project nearby. Ethan glanced over at Marie, a question forming in his mind. "Marie," he began softly, "do you think we could build something new together? I know I'm asking a lot, but I would love to create a future together, one based on what we've learned." Marie considered his words, her gaze thoughtful. "Ethan, these past months have shown me that people can change. I see your efforts, and I see how much it means to Lily. But if we're going to have a future, it needs to be one built on trust and patience." Ethan nodded, his heart filled with gratitude. "I'll take things as slow as you need. I just want to be here, to share life with you both." Marie's smile was gentle, her acceptance a quiet reassurance that gave him hope. It was clear that trust was still building, and Ethan was more than willing to earn it one day at a time. One evening, as Ethan was finishing up some tasks in the kitchen, Lily entered the room, her expression thoughtful, yet uncertain. "Dad?" she asked quietly, testing the word as if it were foreign. Ethan's heart swelled, though he kept his tone steady. "Yes, Lily? There's a school event next week," she continued, her voice soft. "It's kind of a big deal, and they're letting us invite family. I was wondering if you'd like to come." The invitation was a breakthrough Ethan hadn't anticipated, and he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "I'd love to come, Lily. Thank you for inviting me." She gave a small nod, a hint of a smile on her face, before heading off to her room. It was a simple gesture, but to Ethan it was monumental. Her invitation felt like a milestone in their relationship, proof that his efforts were beginning to resonate. When the night of the school event arrived, Ethan dressed carefully, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. He met Marie and Lily in the living room, where Lily looked both shy and proud as she adjusted her outfit. The event was a formal school assembly celebrating student achievements, and as they took their seats, Ethan felt a surge of pride watching Lily on stage, receiving an award for a creative project she'd worked on for months. The applause filled the room and he couldn't resist clapping the loudest. Afterward, as they walked home, Lily glanced over at him. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice quiet but genuine. Ethan smiled, feeling that this night was a symbol of all the moments he'd missed, but was now a part of. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world, Lily." For the first time she leaned in and hugged him. A brief but meaningful embrace that left Ethan feeling closer to her than he ever had before. After the success of the school event, Ethan suggested starting a new family tradition, a weekly game night. He figured it would be a way to create light-hearted memories, moments free from the weight of the past. To his surprise, both Marie and Lily agreed, and the following Friday, they gathered around the dining room table for their first game night. They laughed, shared stories, and even got a little competitive as they played. Lily's guardedness softened, and Marie's laughter filled the room, a sound Ethan hadn't realized he'd missed so deeply. As the evening wound down, Lily looked at her parents, a smile lighting up her face. "This is nice," she murmured, as if savoring the moment. Ethan met her gaze, nodding. "It is, and I hope it's the start of many more nights like this." With game night officially becoming a family tradition, Ethan felt that they were not only rebuilding but creating something entirely new. It was a beginning, one built on love, laughter, and the quiet strength that comes from facing life's challenges together. Ethan's phone buzzed on a quiet afternoon. It was his assistant from New York, informing him of a business opportunity that could significantly boost his career if he returned to the city temporarily. The offer was enticing, and for a moment he felt the familiar pull of ambition tugging at him. But as he looked around the home he shared with Marie and Lily, he realized how much this life meant to him. The success he had chased before was hollow in comparison to the family he had here. Ethan took a deep breath, thinking about the future he truly wanted. "Thank you, but I'm staying here," he replied firmly, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. This time, the decision was clear. He belonged here, with his family, and he was willing to give up any opportunity that might pull him away from them. Later he shared the news with Marie, who smiled, her face reflecting both gratitude and pride. "You're making the right choice," she said, reaching out to hold his hand. Her approval strengthened his resolve, making him more certain than ever that he was finally on the right path. One evening, just as things were beginning to feel settled, Lily fell ill unexpectedly, her symptoms returning with a severity that frightened both Ethan and Marie. They rushed her to the hospital, their worry bringing a new depth to their shared resolve to care for her together. In the waiting room, Ethan paced, his mind racing with concern. Marie sat nearby, her expression tense but resolute, and they shared quiet words of encouragement. Despite the late hour, Pastor Tom arrived, offering prayers and comfort. He reminded them that they were not alone, and that faith, along with their family's resilience, would carry them through. The hours dragged on, but finally the doctor emerged with reassuring news. Lily would be all right. She'd need rest and regular treatments, but her condition was manageable. Relieved, Ethan and Marie exchanged a look filled with unspoken emotions, knowing they could handle any challenge together as a family. The next morning, as they sat by Lily's hospital bed, she opened her eyes, looking weak but managing a small smile. "Thank you," she whispered, glancing between her parents, "for both being here. I didn't think I'd ever have this." Ethan gently took her hand, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll always be here, Lily, no matter what." Marie nodded, her own voice soft. "We're a family and we'll face whatever comes our way, together." For the first time, Lily reached out to hold both their hands, a gesture that felt like a new beginning. In that small, quiet moment, they all shared a sense of unity they had never felt before. It was a promise that they would be there for each other, no matter the past or the challenges ahead. Once Lily was back home, recovering, she shared an unexpected idea with Ethan and Marie. I think "I'd like us to have a family photo," she said shyly. "I know it sounds small, but I'd like to have something that shows we're together." Ethan felt his heart swell. It was a simple request, yet it symbolized so much, a testament to how far they'd come. They agreed, scheduling a day to capture this milestone, a memory they could cherish. On the day of the photo shoot, they laughed and shared moments of quiet joy as they posed together, Lily standing proudly between her parents. The photographer captured their shared smiles, moments of laughter, and even a few tender glances between Ethan and Marie. For Ethan, the photo represented a second chance, something he'd never thought he'd have. When they received the final photos, they framed one and placed it in the living room, a reminder of how far they'd come and the future they were building together. As they gathered around the table one evening, Ethan surprised them with a quiet announcement. He wanted to make a commitment to Marie, to show her that his intentions were serious and that he was dedicated to their future. He reached across the table, taking her hand gently. "Marie, I know we've come a long way, and I don't take this lightly. I want you to know that I'm here, ready for a new chapter together, if that's something you'd want too." Marie looked at him, her eyes shining with emotion. She'd seen the effort he'd made, the consistent way he showed up, and she knew that his words carried the weight of all he'd learned and become. Smiling, she nodded. "I believe in you, Ethan. I believe in us." Lily beamed, her joy evident as she watched her parents take this step forward. For the first time, Ethan felt the complete acceptance he'd longed for. A family united, ready to face the future together. With their family dynamic now stronger than ever, Ethan suggested establishing another new tradition: Sunday dinners. He wanted to create a weekly ritual that would keep them connected, a time they could rely on to come together, share stories, and enjoy each other's company. That first Sunday, Ethan prepared a meal with Marie, cooking side by side as Lily set the table. The simplicity of preparing food and the laughter they shared felt almost sacred. When they finally sat down together, the room was filled with warmth and a sense of belonging. As they talked over dinner, sharing stories from the week and reminiscing on funny moments from their past, Ethan realized that these simple gatherings were the very essence of the life he had been searching for. They were creating memories that would last, each Sunday dinner a celebration of the family they'd become. A few days later, Ethan and Lily went for a walk in the park. The crisp air and gentle rustle of leaves created a peaceful backdrop, and Lily's mood was light as she opened up about her dreams and aspirations. They stopped at a bench overlooking the lake, and Lily turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Dad," she began, her voice soft, "I know you've done a lot to be here with us, and it hasn't been easy. I want you to know I see it, and I'm grateful." Ethan felt a rush of emotion, but he kept his tone steady. "Thank you, Lily. That means more than you know. I just want to be here for you, for everything. Your dreams, your challenges, all of it." She nodded, a small smile on her face. "Well, you're doing a good job," she said with a laugh. "It's nice to know you're not going anywhere." As they continued their walk, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Lily's words were a quiet validation of all he had worked for, and he knew he would continue to show up for her, every day. Later that month, Pastor Tom approached Ethan with an invitation to speak at a community event. The topic was about the power of second chances, something Ethan now understood on a deeply personal level. Initially hesitant, Ethan took some time to reflect before agreeing. When the night of the event arrived, he stood before the crowd, his family seated in the front row, looking up at him with encouragement. "Years ago, I left behind the people I loved most, thinking I could find success somewhere else," he began, his voice steady. "But I learned that real success comes from the relationships we build and the love we share with our family and community. Being here, with my family and with all of you, has shown me that second chances are gifts, and I'm grateful every day to have been given mine." Afterward, he joined Marie and Lily, who hugged him, their faces filled with pride. The community, too, showed their support, offering words of encouragement and appreciation. For Ethan, it was a moment of completion, a sign that he had truly found his place among those he cared for. On a warm Saturday, Marie and Ethan decided to take Lily to a spot by the river where they used to picnic years ago. They spread out a blanket under a shady tree, unpacking sandwiches and treats as they reminisced about the early days of their relationship. As they shared memories and laughter, Marie pulled out a small scrapbook she had made, filled with photos of the family's recent milestones. There were pictures of their first Sunday dinner, the family game nights, Lily's school event, and even Ethan's talk at the community center. Lily flipped through the pages, her smile growing wider with each photo. "This is amazing," she said, her voice filled with awe. "I didn't realize how many memories we've made." Ethan smiled, his heart full. "This is just the beginning, Lily. We have so much more to look forward to." Marie placed her hand over Ethan's, a quiet show of unity. They were no longer just three people with a complicated history. They were a family, bound by the experiences they had shared and the future they were building together. The months rolled by, each one bringing new moments and milestones. As the new year approached, Ethan, Marie, and Lily spent New Year's Eve together, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here and the hopes they held for the future. As the clock struck midnight, they raised their glasses, toasting to the family they had become. Ethan looked at Marie and Lily, gratitude filling every part of him. "To new beginnings," he said, his voice full of emotion. Marie and Lily smiled, each echoing the words, and they clinked glasses, the sound a small but meaningful symbol of unity. They watched the fireworks in the sky, their hands intertwined, feeling that this was not just the start of a new year, but the beginning of a new chapter for them all. In that moment, Ethan knew that the path he had taken to earn his place in their lives was worth every challenge. His heart was finally at peace, surrounded by the love of the family he had fought to rebuild. Together, they faced the future with hope, strengthened by the knowledge that whatever lay ahead, they would face it as a family. As the years passed, Ethan, Marie, and Lily continued to grow together, celebrating life's simple moments and creating memories they would cherish forever. They remained active in their community, their lives filled with purpose and love. Every Sunday dinner, every family game night, and every shared laugh reminded Ethan that his second chance had given him everything he had ever truly needed. With Marie and Lily by his side, he felt a completeness he had never known. In the end, it was the quiet moments that mattered most, each one a testament to the resilience of family and the power of love. Ethan's journey of redemption had come full circle, and as he looked toward the future, he knew he had finally found his true home. As our story of love, redemption, and the strength of family ends, we hope you've been touched by Ethan, Marie, and Lily's journey. If you enjoyed this story and want more inspiring tales of resilience, second chances, and the power of human connection, please consider subscribing to our channel. Hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Join our community as we share more stories that celebrate family, forgiveness, and the moments that truly matter. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.